This is a video by Richpin. Today we are working on a Saturn S series, but what we're doing today should pertain to a lot of vehicles. Now I get this comment quite a bit. The person says, Rich, I can't get my key in the ignition, or once I get it in the ignition, I can't turn it. It's frozen. Well, you got to realize this key is made out of brass. So as the key goes in and out, every time you use it, you're shaving off some of that material, the key. Well, where does it go? It goes inside the lock cylinder. So all those shavings gum up all the delicate little pieces in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove that lock cylinder and we're going to flush all that stuff out of there and then lube it up. Now if your key is already stuck in there and you can't move it, which I get quite a bit, is you've got to try to spray some WD-40 in there and free that up so you can get it out. Once you get it out, then you can remove the lock cylinder and clean it. But you want to try to clean it before you get to that situation where the lock cylinder doesn't want to move anymore. So let's get that cylinder out right now. First thing we want to do is to remove our negative battery cable from the battery. And once we do that, we can remove this little bezel right here. Take that off. And our next procedure is we want to remove the top cover here so we can get at the pin to remove the lock cylinder. And to remove that top cover, we have two 5.5 millimeter screws that hold it in. I'm using my nut driver here. You got to remember that a average diameter socket will not fit in this well right here. And it might stick in there. Okay. There's one screw, and then the other one is under the lever for the tilt. Okay, there's that one. And we should be able to just separate the top cover. There it is. There's your top cover. Here is the pin you have to push in to get the lock cylinder out, up to 1999. To remove the lock cylinder, the first thing we've got to do is to insert our key into the cylinder, turn it to the accessory position, and now we need to push that little lock in on the back. And extract our lock cylinder just like that. Alright, so now let's go inside on the bench and clean this thing out. Now, next thing we're going to do is we want to remove the key, but we want to keep our relationship of the key to the cylinder so we can put it back in. I've made a little mark as soon as I took it out with a magic marker right here, you can see. But we want a permanent one, so what we're going to do is take a little file and just make a little mark There we go. Now we'll know exactly what position to put it back in when we're done. So now we can remove our key. Now the fun. We're going to take some throttle body and intake cleaner or contact cleaner, and we're going to clean that cylinder out. And you will be surprised how much stuff will come out of there. Wow, look at all those brass particles. I'm going to see if I can get a close-up of that and show you. Look at all the brass shavings that came out of that cylinder. And this lock cylinder was in pretty good shape. It's going to make quite a difference. Now once we're done cleaning it, we need to lube it up. Now some people like to use powdered mica. Some people like to use graphite. I just like to spray some WD-40 in there. And actually I like to flush it out with that also. Oh, look at that. Look at that black stuff right there. Oh, you're going to have the cleanest lock cylinder ever. Okay. Great. We'll let that drain just a little bit before we put it back in. Now don't forget to bring your key back to that little mark you made. Right there. Now we're ready to put it in. Now before you try to insert your lock cylinder, make sure the piece that's on the bottom of the cylinder is engaged properly into the ignition switch. We'll go down there with some needle nose pliers. See that little piece right down there? And there's a spring underneath there. There. Alright, now release it very slowly. Okay. Now she is all locked into the ignition switch down there. So once we put our lock cylinder in, it should mate right in there and go right in, no problem. Alright, now we can insert the lock cylinder. There we go. Sometimes you gotta wiggle that key just a little bit to engage into that piece down there. Whoa, look at that. Look at that key, how it moves in and out of the cylinder. No binding, nice and smooth. Look at that. Wow, that's slick. So now all we have to do is put the cover back on here, put a little bezel on there. That's it. We will have cleaned our lock cylinder on our Gen 2 Saturn.